We welcome Shea Dixon from the Bengal Tiger. That is On3's LSU site. Shea is headed to New York City to cover the Heisman Trophy. The last time he went, he got to see Joe Burrow win one. This time, Shea, it does seem like you're probably going to watch another guy on the team you cover holding the trophy.
Yeah, I think Jayden Daniels is a shoe-in if Vegas odds are correct. And really, Andy, it was even before the Pac-12 championship game. There was that feel that a lot of people, at least on social media and TV, were talking up Jayden as, hey, look, he's got the best stats, but will Bo Nix win it? When Bo Nix went out and they lost that game to Washington again, put him at 2 losses, that makes no difference to me, or I think voters, to Jayden's 3 losses, even though they didn't play in an SEC championship game. He's clearly the best player in college football this year. I don't think anybody can debate it. And he joins a very short list of about 5 or 6 guys. Most, if not, I think only one of them didn't win a Heisman, that threw for 3,500 yards in a year and rushed for 1,000. So pretty unique company he's joining with guys like Deshaun Watkins and Kyler Murray and a lot of other quarterbacks here recently that were very good at throwing the football and could also run it pretty well.
I'm just so amazed because I watched his whole career at Arizona State. He started for 3 years, and his freshman year was probably his best. That was when he had the most talent around him. But then when he transferred to LSU, you weren't even sure he was going to win the job, much less turn into what he turned into. At what point did you realize, okay, this guy has a chance to have a very special season?
I think last year we saw towards the end of the year that he kind of had really put together a total package of he could run the football, he could throw it and protect it, but would he take that next step with the deep ball and going downfield? And look, we saw it at Arizona State his freshman season. He was going deep a ton at Arizona State. I think last year, Andy,
Brandon
and this is
Ayuk does
from
that for you.
that's right. I even Jayden has said this though, and there was that sense in his mind when he got here that he's competing for the job and don't mess it up. So don't turn the ball over. So then he doesn't know the receivers like he does now. He doesn't know the whole scheme and the offensive system like he does now. So it was playing just within that comfort level. He grew so much when he added that deep ball element where he felt comfortable about it. And then you've got Malik Neighbors leading the nation in receiving yards. You've got Brian Thomas leading the country in receiving touchdowns, and obviously Jayden leading the nation in total yards and rushing yards by a quarterback in pretty much every quarterback stat category. So remember, this was a guy in high school that twice was a 3,000-yard passer, 1,000-yard rusher. We shouldn't be surprised that we're sitting here seeing it now again here at the college level. And I think that's why he transferred to LSU after things kind of went south at Arizona State. Was I feel like I am that guy who came out as the number 1 dual threat quarterback in high school. In fact, ranked number 1, number 2, Bo Nix at the time.
Yep.
But Daniels kept that dual threat element to him, and now has turned it into what's going to be a Heisman winning moment.
And it is amazing because you got Baker Mayfield transfer who won the Heisman, Kyler Murray transfer who won the Heisman, Joe Burrow, Caleb Williams. And now, like this year, there are going to be 3 quarterbacks in New York, Jayden Daniels, Bo Nix, Michael Penix Jr., all transfers.
Yeah, think about it. In the year that Burrow won, Hurts was standing there next to him as a transfer who had obviously had an unbelievable season. So there's a reason right now, while you refresh whatever your social media or YouTube or podcast is, that everybody's talking about transfer quarterbacks, because boy, oh boy, have they not struck gold here in recent years with almost every guy beyond a Bryce Young maybe and Tua before him being homegrown.
Yeah, it is. It's interesting because you've got to kind of plant the quarterback in the right soil, and sometimes they're not in the right soil to start with. Sometimes it takes, Jayden Daniels going from Tempe to Baton Rouge, or Michael Penix Jr. going from Bloomington to Seattle, and it is pretty amazing. Let's talk about the transfer portal as it relates to LSU, because it feels like what's going out is what you usually see in the transfer portal. That'd be guys who haven't played as much as they would like, or they've had some injury issues and things just haven't worked out for them. I've not seen any surprises from LSU. Anybody who it seems like they'd be relying upon next year.
No, and that's the spot you want to be in. And I think in year 3 now, Brian Kelly has built this roster up from 38 guys when he took over to now having to balance of where you're at with that 85-man scholarship limit. They went really heavy on high school signees. They've got more than 25 of them set to sign in December. I think they'll end up in that 25 to 30 range with guys they add. Then they want to add fewer than 10 players in the portal. That's such a stark difference from where they were in those first 2 years. So now you've got that balance on roster that takes us back to, like I said before, that I've said this so many times on my podcast, people don't forget natural attrition is a thing. Before the transfer portal, 10 guys left a school every
Right.
year. You can't
They were just
sign
going to
25
McNeese instead
guys.
of being
Yeah,
able to go
so
to another SEC school.
right. It's no different now than it was then, except you can transfer to it. You don't have to ask permission to go to an SEC school, and you don't have to sit out if you've never transferred. So, yes, you'd expect those numbers to go up. But if you're in a program like LSU, verge of winning back-to-back 10-win seasons, you've rebuilt the roster. Now you're finally in a spot where you're not hemorrhaging players that you say left and right, man, we needed that guy. It's, hey, these are guys looking for playing time, whether it's early in their career, back end of their career, whatever it might be. They feel buried on the depth chart, and that's natural. That's fine. That's what the portal in large part should be for. So LSU fans, fingers crossed, I think they can get through these 30 days without looking up and saying, hey, we lost guys that we were relying on.
And the other piece of that, you said to bring in fewer than 10. How many of those are DBs that will come in from the portal?
LSU fans want me to say all 10 of them, right? Look, they took 4 transfer corners last year, and by the 2 months into the season, none of the 4 were playing anymore. When they played Alabama, 2 of them injured, and 2 of them in Denver Harris and Deuce Chestnut were suspended. And Brian Kelly's talked about that. He said, we're going to be so much more pointed in who we take, the position we take, how good we feel about them making an impact on our team, because they had room before to just swing for the fences. They were taking above 15 transfers in both years that Brian Kelly had been here. Now it's very clear, let's go after a corner or 2. I think a safety is going to be a big need for them. I think they get 1 or 2 safeties. D-line is one where I could see them adding 1 or 2. But other than that, it would just be filling little position, holes where you say, hey, maybe let's add another receiver because we're losing Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas, or whatever it might be, to where you have depth, but you just want to add a little bit more high-end talent to the room. And then there's one that everyone will always ask, which I do think LSU, or I should say I know LSU will explore, is quarterback. Because yes, Garrett Nussmeier is their quarterback, but do you go into a next season where your backup quarterback is Ricky Collins, a true freshman right now, who's played in 1 game ever and thrown 2 passes? So I think an insurance quarterback is something that they'd be interested in.
Yeah, or a reclassifying Colin Hurley, who should be in high school.
Yeah, he's only 16, and he'll be showing up to campus in about a month.
The hair's spectacular, though. It's even better than before.
It's as big as you can imagine, and it's got a lot of colors to it. So, look, he's a magnetic personality, and that'll be the 3rd quarterback on roster when he gets here in January, with Jayden Daniels on his way out. And we'll see where LSU goes if they do go portal hunting for a quarterback and end up taking one.
That does seem like a good spot for a veteran who, maybe is coming from a smaller school, wants to play at a big time school, but isn't necessarily hell bent on being the starter.
Or promised a job, which LSU's not going to be able to do to anyone. Even Jayden Daniels didn't come into a situation like that. He won the job, but nobody's going to get promised a job when Garrett Nussmeier has waited his turn and is certainly talented enough to be the quarterback at LSU. So I'm curious to see how it unfolds.
One more, and I'm sure your subscribers keep refreshing on the message board and refreshing the homepage of the Bengal Tiger. The defensive coordinator position. Obviously, the defense was not up to their standards this year. We have seen Brian Kelly make changes at that position before, either because he's had to because the person was really good and got a head coaching job, or because in the case of Brian Van Gorder at Notre Dame was very bad. So what happens with Matt House?
Here's what I've told LSU fans, and I think is the way to view it, that look at Brian Kelly's track record over the past decade plus, which is at Notre Dame and Cincinnati. He brought Diaco over from Cincinnati. He wins the Broyles Award as the defensive coordinator. Then he's got guys like Clark Lee, Mike Elko, Marcus Freeman, all DCs he hired who are head coaches now in the SEC and at Notre Dame. I mean, these are highly regarded defensive minds. The miss was Brian Van Gorder, obviously. He fired Brian Van Gorder in year 3, and he talked about it this week, actually, with the media. He said, look, 3 games into that season, I fired my defensive coordinator, and he stood in my wedding with me. So I know how tough these decisions are. But at this point in my career, remember, he's been coaching 30 plus years. He's got a D2 national championship. What he's chasing is a national championship at the FBS level. LSU is his final stop. He came to the SEC for this opportunity. You're expanding to 12 teams. He knows it's sort of that now or never. So I've told LSU fans, look, his hit rate's great. And when it missed, he fired someone. It was in year 3. It was a few games into it. I don't know what that means for Matt House, because he's after year 2 now, where in year 1, where you had even fewer pieces to work with, they actually were one of the middle of the road defenses in the SEC and nationally. It was just this year falling off a cliff when, boy, did we never think it in the Les Miles days. You've got the best offense in America. Nobody can stop you. You can go to Ole Miss and put up 600 yards and score 49 points and still lose a football game. That can't happen. So Brian Kelly gets paid a lot of money to make this decision. A lot of LSU fans have an eye on it. My view would just be, hey, look, a very good hit rate for a guy who's been a head coach 30 plus years. I'd trust that he knows more than we do about the situation and what's ongoing in that building. And whatever he decides to do is ultimately one decision that LSU fans will have to just feel confident in and stand behind.
So after signing day is what you're saying. All right, we got it.
That's right. That's right.
That's a long way of saying it. It may happen after signing day. No, I don't know that. I don't know anything. I just usually when the coaches string it out, that tends to be when things happen. So we'll see what happens with you guys. Go ahead.
And I will note too, and Notre Dame people have talked about this, Brian Kelly's had a track record assistant wise of guys find other jobs. And then you hear that news. You don't hear someone got fired. So maybe it's a wait and see, not just with Matt House, but the defensive staff as a whole.
Yep. I guess we will find out. Stay tuned to the Bengal Tiger and Shea Dixon. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for watching. Just a reminder, subscribe to this channel right here so you never miss an episode of Andy Staples on 3. And oh, by the way, watch all the other great videos on the On3 Sports YouTube channel.